be live in about 10 seconds.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the live broadcast of the Lextran Board of Directors meeting. It's April 15th of 2020 at 3 p.m. and I want to welcome everybody who is watching on YouTube or viewing online or listening in via WebEx. This is a new format for us, so bear with us if we have any technical difficulties. And I will turn it over to our board chair, Mr. Christian Motley. Thanks, Mr. Motley.
Thanks, Carrie. I didn't ask you, would you like me to do a quick roll call for the record?
Yes, thank you. Perfect.
So quickly, if you could just chime in. George, you on?
Present.
Rick, you on? Eli?
Present.
Peggy?
Present.
Marcy?
Present.
Joe? And Adrian?
Present.
Thanks, y'all. We will quickly move to public comment if someone has comment on agenda items.
Mr. Motley, this is Carrie Butler, if I may. If anyone does have a public comment and is either having a technical difficulty or is unable to sort of make a comment in this virtual format, if they would please send their comment to Stephanie Hunt. Her email is shunt lextran.com, and we can enter that into the public record. We knew this is a different format, and we're happy to take those public comments even if people were unable to make it in this virtual manner. Thank you.
Right. And board members, do me a favor, if you're on, I think we need you to be up on your video so folks can see you. Next, we'll move to the approval of the February board minutes.
Move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Eli had.
All in favor, say aye or give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you. We'll move to the next piece. Typically I will yield the chair's report unless I need to sort of speak to something very specific. And I think given the context that we've been working in over the last several weeks, I wanted to take a minute and just and say a quick thank you, or maybe a not so quick thank you, if you will indulge me. It's been a really critical time for Lexington and communities around the country, and it's a very challenging time, particularly for our board and our team. And I want to say thank you to the whole team and for the board for how everybody's leaned in, working together to meet this moment and respond effectively in service of our mission, and while staying in alignment with guidance that protects the public health and ourselves. Um, Thank you for being nimble and able to respond effectively to weekly and sometimes daily changes in local, state, and federal orders. I want to do some calls out just really quickly. Thank you to our utility workers who are supporting Lextran by cleaning our facilities and our transit center and adding extra detailing on board vehicles throughout the service day. Thanks to our service workers who are servicing the fleet in the evening and maintaining our stops and shelters, and again, adding cleaning procedures each and every day. Our maintenance team, thank you to our maintenance supervisors and our mechanics who are really working diligently to ensure our vehicles are available, and our facilities manager and parts manager who are working to support our needed inventory for things like personal protective equipment, PPE that everybody's hearing so much about. Thank you for our team for making sure we have that and the additional cleaning supplies. Um, Thank you to our operators who have really been integral to ensuring our ability to provide the essential service that we give to our community. And they've stepped up in a number of ways. I'm thinking about, just showing up, make the runs, following guidance to stay healthy and to help others stay healthy. And some folks are even, shifting some of their roles to help on different working assignments and think specifically about just the additional cleaning and disinfecting. And that stuff is helping to keep our team, again, healthy and our riders healthy. Our transportation supervisors, I want to thank you. I know that those folks have been there right with our drivers, passengers, answering questions and providing reassurance in a time where it's really easy to get panicked and a lot of confusion can spread quickly. Thank you to our IT team for successfully navigating a transition to the cloud and making sure, again, folks have the tools and applications that they need to keep things running smoothly. And thank you to our customer service and administrative staff who are adjusting to a very a different environment, ever-changing environment. And I've gotten personal notes about some of the early decisions that we made. Again, trying to meet the guidelines, but also meet the need of our riders. Updating social media, updating the website anytime that anything is changing. And oh, by the way, our team has put together a budget for all of this. And so I'm always proud to be a member of the board, but I think this moment has highlighted our commitment to community. And thank you all for indulging me. I just want to make sure to say just a really big thank you to everybody on this team.
Indeed.
Let's move to the performance report.
I apologize, Mr. Muttley. One item that I believe we maybe skipped over, and if I could ask the screen sharer, Ms. Falconberry, to go back maybe just one or two slides. I believe we also had our work session minutes from April 8th.
Oh, yes.
And if we could ask for approval of those. And I believe there may be a comment on those meeting minutes from a week ago.
Yes.
Yeah, Christian, I have an addition I would like to add to these.
Please.
This is George. And this is the addition. Mr. Ward asked that the chair and vice chair meet with Lextran administration to talk about strategy for the use of the 5307 funds, and that the strategy be reviewed by the finance committee. And if we can add that, then I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes for the work session.
I'll second it. It's Marcy.
That's a second. All in favor, say aye or show me your thumbs.
Aye.
Christian, I have a
Anyone,
question.
anyone opposed?
Chris,
Yes,
can
Peggy?
you hear me? Sorry. The 5307 funds, can you further identify what they are?
So, Carrie, you want to note those real quick?
Yes, and I will have Nikki Falconberry fill in if I miss anything. So Section 5307 are Federal Transit Administration funds that we receive each year. Sometimes we will refer to them as formula funds, as these are capital funds that are allocated on a formula basis based on population and ridership and average miles traveled by a passenger. And as part of the CARES Act that was passed 2 weeks ago, or so, there was an allocation or an authorization and allocation to transit properties of about 25 billion that was spread out across the country, broken out into a number of different section fundings. The funding that has been apportioned to Lextran is through the Section 5307 funds. It is approximately $13.8 million. We have the dollar amount in the fiscal year 21 budget slides that are coming up. These funds can be used for primarily capital projects, and that's what we use them for in a regular formula year or as formula funds throughout the year. Capital cost of contracting, preventive maintenance, technology. You can use them to purchase vehicles, fleet, capital needs, sort of general capital expenditures. A change that was part of the CARES Act is that they are now eligible to be 100% federal share. That means there's no local match, and that they can be used for operations. So that 100% and to be able to be used for operations is different than a normal how regular or normal 5307 formula funds are spent. So we can use them for operations and capital needs. That may be more information than you wanted on 5307, but that's generally how they can be used. So,
Right. That's what I was thinking, that it was those funds
mhm.
that we received, and I just didn't recognize the 5307. But
Yes, we. Yeah.
I was wanting to ask if it can be used, like for safety purposes, to help our drivers and the folks at the transit center be safer. You know, uh, kind of.
Yeah.
Uh, could it be used
Yes.
for something
Yes,
like
great question. And I left out one area of funding, which is you can use it to pay for PPE, personal protective equipment, and other expenditures specifically related to the COVID-19 pandemic. So certainly, yes, it
that?
can.
Okay,
And
okay. Well,
some of that would roll under operation expenses.
okay. Well, I thank George for this motion, because I had that in mind to at least bring that up during this meeting, that we need to specify where that money's going. So thank you, Christian.
Yeah.
And it's also true that we're getting quite a bit more money from that fund, is it?
Yes, we typically receive, or I should say through the past federal authorization bill, of 4.5 million in Section 5307 funds. So 13.8 is almost a little bit more than three times what we would receive in any given fiscal year, federal fiscal year.
So is that on top of what we typically get, or is that the total cost?
It is on top of our fiscal year 2020 appropriated amount. So on top of the 4.5 that we were, 4.5 that we received in federal fiscal year 20. And Nikki, correct me if I'm mistaken there.
Meaning we'll get 17.5 million from the federal government.
We have already drawn down the, well, Nikki, I'm going to let you answer that because I'm not exactly sure if we've already drawn down our federal fiscal year 2020 5307 funds or not.
Yes, we've used the 5307 money throughout the year. For most of it goes to for preventive maintenance and paratransit costs. The 13 million that we will get is for operating costs. Its purpose mainly is to make up for operations, to for the new leave act that we're having to do if anyone's put on administrative leave, um, and it makes up the difference for things like that. And it will be on a reimbursement basis for the operating funds. So
But for the
we
year, we're getting 17.5 million.
well, that's correct for the entire year.
Right.
Thank you, Rick. I think Rick's trying to clarify how good of a thing we think this is.
And I think what George is getting at is we have to figure out how what to do with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you all, and thank you, Carrie, for reminding us about the work session. Are we ready for the performance report?
Yes. I will.
Would you
I
take
just
that
want to.
motion?
I wanted to reiterate my thank you and appreciate your thanks, Mr. Motley, as we open the meeting. Just to the team, everybody, the directors, management team. I mean, I've really felt what it is like to be a part of a team and a team that's working together, and have been honored and humbled by the work that we've done, and we're still right in the midst of it. So thank you for everybody. Thank you to the board and our passengers, and just it's been a lot, but we're getting through it together. So I will. I just as a reminder, we did not meet in March, and so what we have for you is a performance report for February of 2020, for the month of February, which we would have presented at the March meeting. And that is going to look like most of our monthly performance reports. The report for March of 2020 will look different, and we wanted to take the time to go through our response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So this report for March will look a little different. And then as we get caught up into, more of our regular service and kind of regular operations, we'll go back and do kind of our regular performance report for March. So if I could turn it over to Ms. Barnett, and she can do the February and March monthly performance report. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. This is the first time I've said anything today. I just want to do a quick check that everyone can hear me okay.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, thank you. As Carrie said, this will be February and March. February, in the interest of time, is a little bit abbreviated this evening, and then March, as she said, looks quite different. Start off, just as all of our performance reports do, with our mission that we serve people and our community with mobility solutions. And I think we are feeling that mission very much right now, and that we are serving our community as an essential service. Something good to report that happened earlier this year in February. 3 shelters that you had heard us talk about previously were installed in the Beaumont Circle area. So those things have been in place and serving customers. Those are at Kroger, at the Kentucky Blood Center, and right on the main strip behind the UPS store. Our ridership for the month of February was up about 14,000 trips on fixed route compared to the previous year, and we were up a number of trips on the paratransit side as well. We reported 91% on-time performance for fixed route and 92% on-time performance for our paratransit service, so we were pleased with those numbers. And also pleased to report to you that our customer commendations are trending up for both fixed route and paratransit service compared to the same time last year. And on the fixed route side, our comments related to discourtesy are trending down. Quick look at our safety chart that you see every month. And as I said before, this is a little bit abbreviated. I will also add the caveat that if you have specific questions about anything, I may want to take a note on those and get back to you. February feels a bit like a lifetime ago at this point. Our maintenance department working hard every month. They completed 100% of their preventive maintenance inspections on our revenue vehicles in the month of February for a total of 48. So thank you, maintenance. And I wanted to move in to the month of March and our response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which some of the work that we've done related to that actually started in January. Around the country, we all started hearing about the coronavirus, the COVID-19. We were also in the height of flu season. Related to that, we increased some of our sanitation efforts, both at the transit center and on board our vehicles, with special attention to those high traffic, high touch areas for our passengers and for our drivers. March 6th was the first positive COVID-19 case in the state of Kentucky. And in the following days, we worked really hard to redeploy some of our maintenance staff who normally service some of our vehicles on the lot or are at shelters out in the community. We redeployed some of those folks to work at our downtown transit center, providing some additional cleanings and additional wipe downs of our buses and of our surfaces in between trips and when buses were doing layovers. It's a little additional cleaning. On March 16th, that's when Governor Beshear started closing a lot of businesses. We closed our administrative office and our customer service windows to the public and advised employees to participate in telework if they were able to do so, for a lot of the professional staff who aren't necessarily front lines like our drivers and our maintenance staff. March 17th, I have a note here. I believe that is the day that we were deemed a critical essential business by Governor Beshear. public transportation was exempt to a number of the closures that he instituted at that time. And in the following days, on March 19th, we implemented a series of measures that were intended to help increase social distancing and also to discourage some of the non-essential travel. So we did ask our passengers to limit their trips to essential travel only. We reduced the service on some of our lower volume routes. We implemented rear door entry and exit on board all vehicles in an effort to increase the social distancing between the operator and the passengers. As you know, on board the vehicles, the fare box is right there, right beside the driver inside the door, and that's where passengers linger when they get on board to pay their fare. And so by asking them to enter through the rear door, if they could possibly do so, that put a little space between the operator and their passengers in an effort to help keep them safe. We closed our downtown transit center waiting areas to passengers. They're a small enclosed space, and it was not a place where we could adequately social distance people, and so we closed those areas. And we also temporarily eliminated fare collection since people can't get to the front of the bus. On March 25th, we added signage on board our vehicles that requested passengers stay 6 feet from the driver at all times. The following day, we had an employee who tested positive for COVID-19. A number of other employees were identified through tracing efforts. We worked with the health department to do that, and also just through schedules and employee contacts. We identified those folks who may have been exposed and placed them on a voluntary self-quarantine out of an abundance of caution, and we were able to do that. On March 26th and 27th, we held some all-employee conference calls to inform our workforce that a coworker had tested positive for COVID-19, respond to their questions and concerns as best we could while still maintaining the confidentiality of the employee who had the positive test. On March 31st, we reduced our maximum load capacity and number of available seats on board vehicles. We added signs to several seats encouraging passengers to stagger themselves on board and letting them know that seats were unavailable. Because of that limited capacity on board the vehicles, whereas a 40-foot bus had previously been able to hold 40 plus people, it was now limited to approximately 15. We added shadow buses from both the fixed route and from our wheels fleet to help ensure enough capacity for all our passengers and prevent leaving people behind. And I know this is a March report, but this response has definitely continued into April. In the early parts of April, we distributed masks and hand sanitizers to all of our operators ahead of the CDC recommendations related to mask use, letting them know, of course, that that was voluntary. And again, on April 6th and 7th, we held additional all-employee conference calls to respond to concerns or questions that they might have about COVID-19. And I did want to add that since that March 26th test, we have not had any employees who have tested positively for COVID-19. But we will continue to keep our workforce informed. And I have a quick chart to show you of how our ridership has been impacted. Not just necessarily by service reductions, but also by some of the executive orders to close businesses, close schools, close non-life sustaining businesses. Obviously, that impacts the places people are traveling for shopping or other life activities, but also impacts where they're traveling for work. So we have seen a significant decline with our fixed route ridership. Paratransit has seen a decline as well. This is not inconsistent with what agencies around the country are experiencing. Many people are seeing that decline in ridership related to COVID-19 as it sweeps the nation, unfortunately. If you have any specific questions about anything that I've shared, please let me know. I'll pause to give you a moment.
I have a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
One on the fare collection, is that a kind of a national policy for most transit agencies?
I won't necessarily say it's a national policy, but
Practice.
I would, yes, practice very much so. We've seen that in many agencies around the country that they've eliminated fare collection because many agencies have gone to the rear door boarding, and so that, you know, unless passengers are paying on the platform, which is pretty unusual in a fixed route service, there's no way to collect the fare if they're not at the front of the bus. And in order to ensure that we're able to provide the service, we have to create that distance between the passenger and the driver.
If it's a person with a disability, do they have to enter the front door, or is there accommodations on the back door?
They can still use the front door. So persons who use a wheelchair or mobility device, or who might have limited mobility, and need the bus to kneel, they can still use the front door.
Okay. And then last question, on time performance, how do you slow the buses down now that there's no traffic on the streets? Or have you changed schedules to where they make the route more often?
We have changed our schedules a little bit. And built in throughout routes, there's what's known as time points. And a bus can get to that, it can arrive at that time point early, but it cannot depart early. And that's part of what helps the bus stay on schedule. Because that's what the person, a person on the street would see when they looked at their bus schedule. They would see a time that was based on that time point. And so they would know, okay, I'm going to be at Newtown Pike and Citation Boulevard. The bus is not going to leave there before 5:40. And so while the bus might arrive early because of decreased traffic, it's not going to leave there early. So that's what helps keep it on schedule.
Okay.
So it's similar to what we face during summers when traffic is decreased in Lexington anyway. So we just make adjustments. Are there any other questions?
Just another shout out. I saw, now I don't know what the time period was, but I saw a picture of folks either on a train or a bus in a larger city, and they were just right up on top of each other. And so I was just grateful that we, made the changes that we did, not only, not only to ensure that folks were socially distanced, but also just I'm thinking about the shadow buses or the wheels buses, vehicles running behind the buses, ensuring that we still are getting people where they need to go as we try to make sure that they stay healthy. So it's just another shout out.
We had a few days, a couple days maybe, where things were a little bit rough out of the gate, and we learned quickly from those days and tried to respond quickly. I think that's something very important that you mentioned earlier in your thanks, that I will also echo to our team. Also a huge shout out to the operations department, who has eyes all over our service, and has been able to respond quickly. I read a quote from someone at another transit agency that I think is very fitting. She said, "We're building the plane as we go."
Yeah.
None of us knows how to do this, and so we're doing the best we can and learning from our mistakes, unfortunately, as we go, but trying to correct them quickly. And so appreciate the board's support and the board's patience with us very much, and very appreciative of our team. If there are no other questions about the
I have a question.
I'm going to
just looking ahead, on the financial statement, I can see that our passenger rides have gone down drastically in March, but it doesn't seem to have that much of an impact on our passenger revenue in March.
Nikki, I have relinquished control, so I will give this back to you to move to the financial statements. Rick, I'm going to let Nikki respond to your question.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay. For the passenger revenue that you spoke of, we received about half of what we normally do for a typical month. When we stopped taking fares on March the 19th, ridership had already slowed down some by that point because of all the shutdowns were starting to take place. So at that point, we received, like I said, about half of what our revenue was. Our property taxes are still coming in steady at this time. We have received some money in April that'll be reflected on the next month. Our wages and fringe benefits and things have been pretty normal. We're doing the new CARES Act that has passed with the Families First and all of our emergency leave that we have been required to provide employees that if they have been off for childcare issues or if they've been exposed. And then, of course, Jill mentioned the one person that had COVID, so we're managing that really well. Our professional services and materials and supplies are steady of where they have been for the month. We'll probably see materials and supplies go up in the next month, obviously because of the PPE, the personal protective equipment that we've purchased. We've done as much as we could to help employees with sanitizer and masks and extra gloves and things like that. Diesel fuel at this point has been very low. We haven't seen it below $2 for a long time. So our average for this fiscal year is about $1.88. And the latest price on April the 6th was actually $1.15. Our CNG's been running about the same, about $1.26. So while we know that diesel won't stay at that price, that's nice right now while things are in the situation that we're in. Our paratransit expense is right exactly on budget for this year. As you know, we've been over for the past few months since they have had a lot of reduced service. We've seen a lot of those trips decline. However, as Carrie mentioned, they are shadowing our service. So we will still continue to see some expenses there. Everything else has been pretty much on track. We're still under budget for the year for expenses. So we are pleased with that. So I'll be glad to take any questions that anyone has.
Yeah, back on the passenger revenue. Okay, we see that the trips are down quite a bit, but when we look at this March financial report, we budgeted $1,020,000, and our passenger revenue is only down $72,000 relative to budget.
Correct. We had actually seen a rise in passenger revenue in the past few months. I'll turn any questions about the ridership part over to Fred if
Okay.
he wants to say any questions about that. But as far as the actual revenue, we had seen it be up for the
Okay.
last few
Right.
months before this happened.
This is Carrie. One note about the relative or relationship between passenger fares and the ridership is a large portion of our ridership are students, and they have the prepaid fare agreement with University of Kentucky, our Blue Pass. So that may be where we're seeing more of a drop in ridership, and then when our fare revenues leveling off.
Well, what do you think the fare revenue was just for the month of March then?
For the month of March, it was about 57,000, and we
Okay.
usually have about 130,000.
All right, so it is down a lot. Okay.
Yes, but that was only 19 days.
I have a question. There's probably a strong assumption that we may go into a recession. What is ridership like as we see maybe jobs not coming back, or if this is prolonged? How do public transit usually react to downturns in the economy? We usually take a hit.
It's interesting, and I appreciate you asking that. In the recession, the Great Recession in 2009, ridership ridership increased nationally. I don't know that I can speak specifically to Lextran, but ridership across the country was was relatively high in 2009, 2010, in part because people will choose to ride transit when they are looking for work, unemployed, trying to save a little bit on their transportation costs. So they will use transit as a way to save money. The fuel prices at that time were also extraordinarily high, the highest that I have seen them. So that was another sort of contributing factor to increased ridership. So right now, or I, to answer your question, kind of looking forward, I'm not sure if unemployment stays high, then will people seek, Lextran or transit as a way to sort of spread out their income and minimize those transportation costs. But if fuel is still low, it may be kind of a negative effect. So I don't have a good answer for that. But in the past, high unemployment has benefited ridership for transit generally. Different localities have different experiences. But one item is we were seeing high ridership, a relatively high ridership at Lextran and in Lexington with very low unemployment. So that I don't have a good sense of how that might be. I'll say, if Mr. Combs or Ms. Barnett or anybody has any other thoughts on ridership, but I'm not sure that we can see into the crystal ball right now. But that's kind of what we've seen historically about ridership and recession or unemployment levels.
Okay, I'm just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, any more questions about financials? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. Move to the first resolution.
Great, thank you. The first resolution we have, 2020-03, is our Equal Employment Opportunity Program update for 2020. This is a every 3 to 4 year update that is due to Federal Transit Administration, and the program plan was included in your packet. It is the contents of the program plan are guided by the Federal Transit Administration circular, which lays out the requirements of a transit agency equal employment opportunity EEO program plan. And then there are a number of reviews and reports that are required for the prior period. So the last time that we submitted this plan to FTA was in 2015. So this goes back to the 2015 era. And then the appendices in the back assess our employment practices, so hiring, testing, promotions, transfers, discipline, and then the utilization analysis. And that utilization analysis takes census data of the demographics of our community and who is sort of not eligible, but who can work in these certain EEO categories, and then we sort of match that up with how many people we have in our different EEO categories. So if there are 100 people who could be a craft worker, and we want to be proportionate with our metropolitan area of census demographics. The other change that we are making or with this EEO program plan is to approve Jill Barnett as our equal employment officer, and it's sort of a temporary or intermediate role until a permanent compliance officer is appointed. And that's someone has sought other work, looked for new opportunities in the role, the person who was serving in that role previous. So wanted to have Jill Barnett be the EEO officer. One note that I'll make that is different for transit than some of the private sector employees is the EEO, the FTA requires, strongly encourages that the EEO officer is not part of the human resources team. This is different than in some private employers where you would have an EEO officer as part of the human resources team. FTA is strongly encourages that the EEO officer or compliance coordinator, as we've had the job title, is exclusive of human resources. So hence why we have Jill Barnett as the temporary serving EEO officer right now. I'm happy to take any questions on the EEO program plan, the charts, or the appointment of Jill as the EEO officer.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
George, I'll make a motion to accept.
Is there a second?
I'll
A second.
Got George motion, Marcy second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. The next resolution we have, Resolution 2020-04, is a resolution to award a warranty and maintenance agreement with Avail Technologies Incorporated. This warranty and maintenance agreement with Avail is one that expired back in October, November, and I believe we brought it to the board's attention that we had been working with Avail to negotiate the terms of the warranty and maintenance agreement. And with the holidays and some transition at Avail and transition on our team, it's just been a little bit of a slow process. But we have gotten to the terms that we have included in this resolution. So Avail Technologies Incorporated is our fixed route ITS, or Intelligent Transportation Systems provider. This was originally awarded back in 2010, and that was for a system integrator that included our onboard communications, mobile communications, cameras were part of the original project, dispatch system, computer-aided dispatch and automatic vehicle location. We have our automatic passenger counters, automated annunciating system. And so it's a full product of really how we run our operations, or how we a tool that we use to run our operations. So that was back in 2010. Another product software application, FleetWatch, is FleetNet. They are it's sort of a parts and maintenance program, and it is also how we run our financials. And so in Avail Technologies bought FleetNet, and now they call that product, or that software application, Enterprise Resource Planning, so ERP. So you might hear us say FleetNet or ERP, but that's all part of Avail Technologies now. And we previously renewed our warranty and maintenance agreement with Avail Technologies back in November of 2015. So that was the first contract in 2010, the second warranty and maintenance agreement in 2015. And then what we are looking at doing now is a 3-year agreement with Avail Technologies Incorporated that also includes that ERP FleetNet program for a 3-year term with the annual costs listed for second and third years. So there's a little bit of an increase in each of the 3 years. And, really this warranty and maintenance agreement includes, any service calls, kind of the help desk calls that you make, any kind of major, if we had a service interruption, Avail is there to help us work through that service interruption. So a little bit of an insurance policy, as well as training and updates on their software applications. That, I think, is it. If there's any questions, I might have Fred Combs speak to any of those questions. But I'm happy to try to answer any questions on Avail.
Any questions on this resolution? Is there a motion?
This is Adrienne. So moved to adopt the resolution regarding Avail Technologies.
A second?
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The next resolution we have is 2020-05, parking lot painting and restriping. This is a item that we found even though we've been really in this new headquarters for just about 3 years, the parking lot, the stripes in the parking lot have not worn well over the past few years and have needed to update those parking lanes and the indicators, turn lanes, speed limit signs in the parking lot. So this is, kind of a maintenance related item for our property. We had put this out to bid previously. I believe we updated the board on this months ago. We got two very wildly different bids or proposals on that, hundreds of thousands of dollars different. So we went back out for a request for proposals. We did receive one valid proposal from 7 PM Group, and that was deemed to be responsive, and the pricing is included in the resolution. We have sort of two parts of this project. One is for the employee parking lot. That's over to more on the Broadway side of the building, and then the bus parking and drive lanes. That's where we park the buses, the revenue and non-revenue vehicles, and the details of sort of their process and their total base bid, and the sealer that you can put on top of it to hopefully keep this paint and striping job done for longer. I think that's it. So I'm happy to take any questions on this painting and restriping services resolution.
Carrie, I just have one quick question. What factors would drive such a large variance in proposals?
The feedback that we got was I don't know that there are a tremendous amount of firms that do this work in this area. Lots of firms are busy, or at least in the time when we put out the bid before, are busy. And so they may have put together a really high ticket item bid because thinking maybe they don't really want this work, but they'd be happy to do it if it was at a higher price.
That's one way to, okay. Other questions here? Or a motion?
George, motion to accept.
A second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye or show your thumbs.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you. The next resolution is 2020-06, our fiscal year 2021 budget. And I will, if I could ask Nikki to sort of click through the budget slides. We reviewed the 2021 budget at our work session last week. Maybe just click one more slide, if you will. Maybe one more. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I wanted to, if you don't mind, to get into the PowerPoint, just keep going clicking. We did review this PowerPoint at the work session and have made a few things. The main thing that I'll point out on this slide, thank you, this budget timeline revised, is our submittal to the Commonwealth of Kentucky has been extended by 1 month to June 30th. And we are pending the timeline for presentation and or submittal to the Lexington Fayette Urban County Government, Urban County Council. They have not met. We've asked for a date of when we could submit that, but we did have an extra month granted by the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So our final timeline is June 30. If you could go to the next slide. The next couple are just Lextran at a glance, the services we offer, some of our 2019 accomplishments, and maybe go to the next slide, if you will. Okay. This uncertainty for this budget, we sort of have hit on given the current pandemic that we're responding to. We are also in a sort of holding pattern with our contract negotiations and the expected fare revenue for next year and our property tax revenue. So there's a lot of uncertainty as we were putting this budget together, that just made it certainly a little bit more challenging than in other years. Okay, next slide. And the assumptions and forecast, we did mention that there is a 13.8 million Section 5307 apportionment to Lextran as part of the CARES Act. We have assumed a steady return on our mass transit fund. That's the property tax that we received from our 2004 referendum. Budgeted $2.20 per gallon for diesel. Ms. Falconberry mentioned that diesel had been relatively low in the past few months, but we're sort of keeping an even keel with our diesel. The paratransit trips had been on an incline, on an increase, but in recent, with social distancing, they've declined, but we presume that there'll be, continue on at the rate that they've been in. And then the other assumption that we made as part of this budget that's a change is from prior years is the use of toll credits. So toll credits were a mechanism by which we could leverage a non-cash match from the state, from Commonwealth of Kentucky, as a match for our federal funds, and those are not available. Given this uncertainty, we feel a mid-year budget adjustment is likely. There is, again, impacts to property taxes. We don't know when or what those will come in. The overarching federal authorization bill expires this year, so that's another sort of uncertainty. There was only a one-year budget from the Commonwealth of Kentucky, the legislature. There's a little bit of talk about some other federal stimulus or an infrastructure bill. And then, as I mentioned, we'll be developing a grant program for the CARES Act, those $5307. In the absolute worst case scenario, we would be able to access our line of credit, presuming that the next resolution passes. And then in a really negative, really worst case scenario, our main method for managing our, service, if we have a decrease in revenue, would be to reduce service, layoffs, maybe raise fares. But we did not assume any of these worst case scenarios, but are really more preparing for them, some different, options. The 2021 budget summary includes total revenue of 28 million, 669, total expenses, balanced budget. And then the capital is our fiscal year 2020, and then how we will apply those 13.8 million from the CARES Act in our capital and operating budget. And those dollars come in as capital funds and then can be used to, support operations. This summary 5-year capital plan, and then the projects here, we are working on, or have just kind of preliminary kicked off a comprehensive operations analysis. That's typically done every 5 years. The last one was wrapped up in 2015 and 2016. And this looks at our operations, our service, our routing, and says what is the best way that we can operate our service and kind of analyze all of our operations. So this COA is well timed in that if there is a service cut that needs to happen, or if our revenues decline and we have to make some adjustments, we will have had our homework done. We will know some good opportunities where we can really deliver service in the most effective way. Also looking at a fleet replacement plan for 2021, the ramp program, that's our rider amenities at many places, and improvements to the boarding areas and benches. I think Ms. Barnett showed some of the successful projects there. We will also kick off our transit center improvements as part of the Tom Branch Trail. These are the two crosswalks on Vine Street, and then make some improvements to the platform area or breezeway. Then we'll also be looking for some funds for upgrades and renovation to the Lextran back office area, and perhaps the CARES Act funding can be used for that. We also received a 5339 discretionary award to add a canopy. That's a covered bus storage area at our bus yard. That was originally part of our headquarters project, but was value engineered out. So we're happy to get that canopy project part back in line at here at headquarters. And then our technology and communications, we worked on a feasibility study and have a report on that next month in May. And then so maybe we can look at actually procuring some updates and improvements there. Next slide. This is just a summary slide of our 2021 revenue. And again, the majority of our revenue funds come in through the property tax. Again, we've budgeted a flat receipt of property tax revenue. Don't have a great sense of where that will be in November, but just budgeted flat from last year. Then our, I'm sorry, well, it's fine. This slide will work. Then our next two, FTA capital maintenance and FTA paratransit. So the question that came up earlier about the current federal fiscal year 2020 5307 funds, those are shown there in the capital maintenance and paratransit. So the capital cost of contracting and preventive maintenance program. So that's how we have used our federal fiscal year 2020 5307 dollars, with the remainder of those federal fiscal year 2020 5307 funds split amongst other capital and technology projects from the capital budget. If you'll go to the expenses, the three major areas are total wages and then fringe benefits. That's the blue and the gray pie pieces. And then the bottom, the red part, is our paratransit expense. That is our ADA complimentary paratransit service provided by American Red Cross. We call it Wheels service, and that's that next major expense. We cover about half of that, 50% of that, with our 5307 funds. And then the remaining expenses are split: materials and supplies, diesel fuel, facility lease to Lextran Real Properties, part of our headquarters project financing, property and liability, management fees. Then the remainder are the 1% or less, and they're listed down at the note at the bottom. And if you'll go to the next slide to give the dollar amounts, the chart of this. So then we have here the operating expense. So this gives the specific dollar amounts and does list our annual budget for FY 2020, our projected end of 2020, and then the projected annual budget right now for 2021. Okay, next slide, thank you. And then finally, ending on the 5-year financial plan, Federal Transit Administration requires at least a 3-year financial plan that looks at your expenses and capital activities and operating activities for the next few years. This 5-year financial plan could change. We are expecting here in 1 minute the deadline for our financial services RFP. That is the loan refinancing, or I should say financial services to refinance the loan we took out for our headquarters project back in 2015. And then also looking at ways to, utilize those, the CARES Act funds and how we kind of work through some of the operational challenges. So that is it. That was a little bit of a whirlwind on the federal FY 2021 budget. I'm happy to take any questions, and then we'll go if we can move to resolution. But happy to take any questions. I wanted to just give another summary of that, even though we did go through it at the April 8th work session.
I have one question about the resolution. And I don't know if it's a legal question or maybe just a question for you, Carrie, but should we say something in the resolution that the budget is subject to a potential mid-year adjustment?
I do not know that we need to. I think I mentioned last week at the work session, we've not done a budget revision since I've been here, maybe in the past 7 years. So Miss Morgan, do you have a thought on if we should add that to the resolution, or if we would just make that mid-year budget adjustment as needed when and if?
I think you would just make that adjustment as needed. And you don't need to make it in today's motion. I think you're right, Carrie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you anticipating getting this, what is it, 5407 extra grant? Is that going to come before the end of June?
Yes, I believe we're obligating it this week. So when I say obligation, that is the process by which we enter into a grant application and agreement with Federal Transit Administration, specifically Region 4 headquarters in Atlanta. So that's the regional office that we work with. So those funds will be obligated through typical 5307 line items, including operational funds. So Nikki, did I say that right? We're gonna look to obligate it this week.
Yes, and it's on a reimbursement basis.
Oh,
So
thank you. Good point.
We'll submit expenses and then we'll get reimbursed for those.
Thank you.
You can backdate those to January 20th. Is that the date?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so our proposed budget doesn't reflect any of that revenue?
No, not at this time because we were not certain when the budget was put together. We were not certain of all the details. They hadn't worked out all of the details for drawing the grant money down at that point. So we did not include it as part of this presentation.
Do we know now?
We know the amount, which is listed in the grant. And right now, the grants they're asking everyone to get these through quickly. So they're asking everyone at this time to put them in for very generic line items, operating expenses, preventive maintenance, paratransit costs, things like that. And depending on how much is spent, then we can do a budget revision, grant revision later on.
Would you, for example, anticipate like charging a lot of our personnel expense towards that grant to earn it?
We can charge the operating expenses. We can charge the drivers wages and fringe benefits backdated to January 20th.
So that's what you anticipate doing, I mean, basically a lot of personnel costs to earn the money.
And diesel fuel is also included as an operating expense. So we will have some of that plus paratransit also.
Okay.
Other questions?
Oh, Nikki, before our finance committee meeting, do you think you can redo our cash projection with this amount of money in it?
Oh, yes, we will certainly know more before the next finance committee. Yes.
Yeah, let me ask one more question and related to what was just talked about. Do we know what other transit agencies are doing? Are they waiting to incorporate the 5307 money into the budget before they submit the budget?
No, they're going ahead with their budgets because based on the timelines, and then I've been in touch with a couple of different transit agencies, and I'm on a roundtable through the auditors, and everyone's going ahead with their budgets, and then submitting their capital grants because we don't know the timing. FTA says that they will get this through quickly, but that could quickly for them could mean a month or two. So.
Okay. That's responsible.
Other questions or motion?
Yeah, it is George. I will make a motion that we approve the budget as explained to us.
Is there a second?
This is Adrian. I second.
All in favor, say aye. Show a thumb.
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay.
The next resolution, which is 2020-07, is the extension of the line of credit. This line of credit is a sort of a revolving line of credit that we've had with Fifth Third Bank for a number of years. We originally extended or sought to use a line of credit when we were working on the construction of our headquarters project that we're in now, as a way to sort of bridge the gap of any funding needs that we might have run into, and have had this line of credit in place since then as sort of a safety net, if you will, if our cash does get low throughout the year. We have not exercised this line of credit over the past few years, but we have maintained it over that time period. So that's sort of the long and the short of the line of credit. I'm happy to take any questions, or maybe Ms. Falconberry can help answer those if there are any. And we have tied this approval of the line of credit to our budget each year for the past few years as well.
What is I recall there's a cost to that, right? The line of credit.
Yes, there's a small cost, a monthly cost to have this available. It's very small.
And at one, when it was first established, it used to be $5 million, right, Nikki?
Yes, when we were in the middle of the headquarters project, it was $5 million. So after the project was finished, we went with $1 million. This also has a caveat built into it that says that that it can be turned very quickly into up to a $5 million line of credit if it needs to be, but we just pay the fee on keeping the $1 million ready to draw down if we need it.
Yeah, we did not speak specifically about this at the finance committee meeting this time, other than, we felt we should continue it. But just so everybody knows, in past years, we've talked a lot about it. And, I guess it was at a finance committee meeting where we decided to go from 5 million to 1 million. And so, I'm comfortable that we need to continue it as a safety net, as was said. So I'll make the motion that we accept this resolution.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye or show thumb.
Aye.
Or opposed,
Christian, I had a question.
please.
I'm assuming that the entire balance is available, the 1 million.
Yes, the entire balance is available if we need it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. And I believe we can move to, so we prepared to move to the next resolution. I would ask for, so the next resolution that we're going to look at is related to the contract with between Lextran and Transdev. In order to consider it, I think I need a motion to waive the 48-hour rule to add this to the agenda as a walk-on item. Would there be a motion for that?
I motion to waive the 48-hour rule.
For a second.
George, second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? And is that the right resolution up there, Nikki?
Yes, this is the correct one.
Great. And I've gotten a chance to talk with most of the folks on the board, but I'll give quick top lines, and then I might defer to you, Nikki, if folks have deeper follow-up questions. Just to level set, so we have a current contract with Transdev, and it started in November 2016. That was a 2-year term with 3 options for an additional year. So we exercised the first and second options in 2018 and 2019. So if we pass the resolution today, then we will exercise the third of those 3 options and be prepared to go through the full rebidding process next year. This contract cannot go beyond October 31st, 2021. So this would basically, again, this would move us to our third and final option. Just as a reminder, included in our contract with Transdev, like Carrie and Jill, for example, are employed by Transdev. They, oversee the labor negotiations. We have some legal fees that are covered in this contract. Also covers areas of safety and human resources and maintenance. Nikki, are there any other items I missed that we might need to name as what's a part of this contract?
No, I think you've covered it.
Okay. Are there any?
Strategic planning, that was part of it as well.
Say it one more time. Yes,
The strategic planning.
the strategic planning process that we've been going through, that is a part of that contract.
Christian,
Yes, ma'am.
this would do well for an RFP. At what time? It expires October 21.
Yes, which would mean that we would need to begin the process for a new RFP. I think the comfort level is like 6 months prior. Is that right, Nikki?
Yes, that's correct.
And so we need to be looking at this again in the spring next year.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Any additional questions or a motion?
George, I'll make a motion to accept.
Is there a second? Is that Eli?
Yes, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Resolution passes.
Thank
I
you.
believe is our.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I believe that is our last resolution and a resolution heavy meeting.
Yes.
Any change orders?
We just have one no cost change order, and I'm really just bringing it forward to make everybody aware. We did we'll have a letter agreement with American Red Cross to make sure that the shadow service that they're providing for us. So this shadow service that we've mentioned a couple of times is the wheels buses are following along or shadowing our fixed route buses as a way to provide space for passengers to maintain our kind of revised maximum load, sometimes 10 or fewer passengers on the bus. So that shadow service. And then we've also added a sort of a retainer, a monthly retainer, because Wheels usually, as they collect fare revenue, deducts that fare revenue from the bill, the invoice that they send us. So we've added kind of a retainer for them, which allows them to keep their full-time drivers employed rather than having to face layoffs, because those paratransit trips could jump right back up at the conclusion of our healthy at home or stay at home orders. So just so it's no cost, we're probably well, not probably, we have a decrease in our overall paratransit cost for this month, but just wanted to make the board aware of this change order that includes the shadow service and then a small monthly retainer to cover the loss of the fare revenue, which helps American Red Cross keep their full-time drivers employed and working, so that they'll be able to ramp right back up for service when the stay-at-home order or some restrictions change and people go back to taking more trips on paratransit.
Do we know what the usage of the shadow buses has been?
They are shadowing all of our daytime or almost all of our modified weekday service, and then a little bit here on Saturdays.
I mean, do we know if they're
Folks using them
by the passenger?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a dumb question?
No dumb questions.
does that count as a ridership for our regular route, or does it count as wheels?
Good question. I believe we will count that as fixed route ridership, and we have asked Wheels to tabulate to collect the number of riders. They don't have a fare box like the fixed route buses do, so they'll be kind of keeping a manual tabulation. And I believe it will be considered fixed route ridership, but we will confirm that because I hadn't thought of that. Thank you. But there's no action needed on the change order, just bringing that to your attention.
Thank you. Old business? No old business?
No real old business. I will make mention that we have continued, albeit very slowly, in our discussions with Greyhound. As you remember maybe last time this year, Greyhound had come to us and proposed to
use one of the bays at the transit center as a way to sort of merge the locations. And we have been in continued talks with them. They are in a similar situation where their business has been disrupted, but those talks are continuing. And I'll just when we have more concrete information, we will bring that back to the board. So just no real update other than that has continued, albeit very slowly, and slowed even more given the pandemic. And there's no new business items that I'm aware of, unless anybody on management team has any new business.
Proposed agenda items.
The proposed agenda item, we have the conclusion of our technology feasibility study. So that was the study that we began just about a year ago that looked at our radio. So that's our voice communication systems, and then the associated CAT AVL and fixed route ITS. So just to make it clear, we our current contract and then this warranty and maintenance agreement that we approved earlier is with Avail Technologies to provide the software applications, the equipment for our current fixed route ITS program. The technology and communications feasibility study that we conducted with IBI, a consultant group, looked at the overall programming, the voice radio system, how we could, change that or upgrade when we needed to replace it, as well as options for the next generation of technology. So very much related, but two sort of separate endeavors. And we'll have an agenda item on that, a report back on the technology feasibility study, sort of a report on next steps from that in May. And then the safety management plan is a new requirement from Federal Transit Administration to have a formal safety management plan for public transportation agencies. We will bring that to for your approval next month as well. This safety management plan really was us putting different plans that we already had in place and sort of packaging up in one. So it was, a relatively easy endeavor. We've done great work with safety and risk management, especially in the past 6 weeks. So that will be an agenda item in May. And that's right now, those are the proposed agenda items that I have.
All right. Anything else from the board?
I'd have a question for Carrie.
Yes.
Regarding the safety, I know you all done tremendous work, and this has been just an unprecedented time. But have you looked, or will you be looking at other safety measures, maybe? Because I'm even thinking going forward, are there things that we could do to permanently protect our drivers and maybe even the passengers?
Yes, we have been looking and researching, looking, talking to our counterparts at different agencies through APTA. There's been a number of webinars. There's been a number of kind of calls amongst CEOs and GMs and risk management professionals. There was a report that got released today, put together by a consulting firm, WSP, that had a list of improvements recommended practice for safety and security specific to the COVID-19 pandemic. So we have been doing all that we know to do, especially with social distancing being the primary method by which we can, provide a safe and healthy work, environment for our employees as well as our passengers. But we'll continue to look for those, and as things are change, or things that get, maybe are made available that we don't know about now, we certainly will be looking into that. But we have, if there's something that we could be doing, we are doing it, but are, keep actively every day looking at different resources and things that we could do. If John Givens is on here, is there anything that you wanted to share? I do want to give a shout out to John Givens and the risk management team for their work, but anything you want to mention about the safety management plan or any of the PPE or required, or Jim Barrett for that matter, in maintenance. If there's nothing, that's okay, but I just thought I'd give you the opportunity if there was anything that you wanted to share.
Nothing in particular, Carrie, related to what you've already covered. I guess I would say that I'd like also to give a shout out to the team. It's been a challenging time, to say the least, to be in safety. And I appreciate everyone being a part of trying to get us through this difficult time. But the SMS in general is things that we've always practiced that we'll look at next month and a format required for implementation in July. And Carrie had mentioned that'll be one of our action items. Regarding our current status and what we have been doing, we have been learning as we're going. A lot of the things that were in place related to PPE, very similar practices related to what you do, how you use it. It's just that we're having to use it in a more frequent and more different environment, so to speak, and more frequently and more often. So it's good that we were kind of trained already in how to utilize this cleaning process, and a lot of the OSHA guidelines and standards that we were currently doing, we're just having to do on a more frequent basis. So other than that, Carrie, I don't think there's anything in addition, and we'll kind of summarize the SMS plan next month and have the board look at that for approval and roll that into the package that's required for us by the FTA in July.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all that I have. So thank you.
Right. And no need for a closed session today. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Got a second?
Second, Mercy.
Friends, all in favor, say aye. Show your thumb. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe, be well.
Appreciate your leadership and participation.
Y'all have a good evening.
You too.